To summarize, the people of Ashshore are screwed over once again. Only this time, there's a lot more of them. This time, instead of being dependent on fickle city moguls dropping off supplies, there's an enigmatic, mysterious traveler who will visit randomly with supplies. Curious about what's happening now and what happened then? Keep watching. Hello, people. I don't know if you know this, but I had a story about 7 years ago called Ashshore, and it was a really neat system, and I'll go more into that at some point in one of the videos, but this is kind of the intro to the new Ashshore, because some things happened and now they are not where they used to be. So let's get started. Many years ago, there was a mad scientist who made a machine that caused a cataclysm, and his granddaughter Bee and her husband Remy tried to find out what he had done and if it had affected anywhere else. When she found out that the connection between Ashshore and another world, Stratus Burn, was at the nexus of a bunch of other worlds having problems, dimensions, she was really upset. Well, later, in another dimension, Eric, who is doing my Occult Legacy Challenge, had a alien baby, and then when the alien baby was kidnapped, he went to his friend and fellow scientist Celadon Rotter from the Rottenberry Challenge, and Celadon had found the plans that were the original plans for Bee's grandfather's machine, which caused the cataclysm in Ashshore. They used the machine and brought back Eric's son, but also some aliens that had been living on an alien world, and their human father that was being used as a breeder on that world. Then when Bee and Remy found out about it, they went to go check things out and to do a little lecturing with Celadon over what he had done wrong. There ended up being many, many, many people, which is what I was calling paradoxical at the time, which I have given up on that project because having so many sims in one save made it huge and laggy as heck. But anyway, some of the sims that were transferred to the paradoxical world were Ashshore sims, and they freaked out because not only were they in a different world than they were, but they couldn't find some of their family members. Bee and Remy went to console them, let them know she was doing everything she could to get them back to Ashshore, which is where Bee is from, is Ashshore. Remy is an alien, but they've been together since they were teenagers because he followed her back from Sixum. While Bee and Remy were giving their little speech and trying to calm everybody down, another man came up and said that me just say that Bee and Remy and a lot of people thought that they were all in the world called Stratus Burn. Well, this man Roman, who is from Stratus Burn, told them, this is not Stratus Burn because I'm here with my family, but nobody else from Stratus Burn is here. So they kind of freaked out. And we'll see what happens with that later. This is Ashshore, and there was barely anybody left from Ashshore. Most of them were transported somewhere else. Back in Paradoxical, Remy and Bee went to Celadon to see if he could help them to separate the worlds back put all the Sims back where they originally were. So they went down to his lab and they were trying to think of, what they could do, what calibrations they could make to get it to work, to send everybody back. When a mysterious man came into the room, he paused behind them. They still hadn't seen them. And he grabbed something from a ball on his staff. It looked like an orb of power, maybe. And this caught the attention of Remy and Bee. And then with his orb in hand, he marched up to the portal, used his staff to keep the orb of power inside of the portal, and then he left. Completely. He was no longer there. 1 second he was walking out the door, the next he was gone. They were a little confused and decided to go upstairs to look around. While they were upstairs, suddenly something crazy started to happen. Celadon didn't realize until later that Bee and Remy were gone. Back in Ashshore, the Youngs had just appeared and everyone was celebrating that their friends were apparently back, when suddenly the building that they were in completely disappeared. Then something crazy started to happen. And then they weren't there any longer. The same thing happened all over Ashshore. They found themselves on different levels of I'm not sure if you would consider it a mountain, some sort of hill, and new land that they had never seen before. A bit of a mystical land that had rabbits and birds that seemed aware of everybody around them. It was a bit strange. And then, as everyone was getting used to where they were and checking on each other and, going from one level of the mountain to another to see if everyone was there and if everyone was okay, a mysterious traveler appeared with a box. And inside the box, he said that there was everything they would need. And he told them some grand stories and that he would be back, and he would very much like, if they had some shinies, he would maybe trade them for something that they need. He went from one camp to another, if you could call it a camp when there's nothing there, and told them all the same thing. He showed them the box, said, I have what you need here to get started, and if you want something in addition to this, maybe one day we can trade. I'll be back around. So we went to camp to doing that, and everybody, instead of sleeping in tents like they did the first time around in Ashshore, they all slept on the ground. And now we have to wonder, who is this mysterious traveler and what does he have available for trade? He obviously wants gemstones. He kept mentioning them. But let's go back a little bit and see how things were first time around in Ashshore. A little history, a little getting to know some of these Sims. The first time in Ashshore, there were a total of 20 Sims. They're not all pictured in this picture here, but these were the main single Sims that we started out with. They were told there was no place for them in the city, but the city did provide them with some tents and some other goods that they could use, and they all lived on that one giant lot for a little bit of time, and they just existed together. I thought that it might be fun for us to do a little then and now thing with the pictures. So this is the way it is now, and then we're going to zoom in and see. In the picture we have Tanya and Stefan. So Tanya was one of the first Sims, and she lived with her grandmother, Cecilia, and then Tanya met Stefan, and they were both teenagers, and this is during school, Tanya and Stefan talking. And now we're going to move on to Eric and Maxwell. Eric was another one of the starting Sims. Maxwell came along. I had these Sims that I made. I called them not so random townies. I actually randomized their things and personalities and gave them traits that matched their personalities and rolled for, what hair color and whether they would have freckles or whatever. So a lot went into these quote unquote random townies. Well, Maxwell was one of the first group, and Eric saw him across the park and seemed to have taken a little notice of him. Okay, so moving on, we have behind Maxwell there, Elsa and Mac. And Mac was one of our starting Sims. And there is Mac and Elsa's first sight picture. She's the blonde back there that he's looking at. And I love Elsa. Elsa is just vibrant, I guess you could call her. And I'm sure Mac took note of how happy she is. Moving on, we've got Drew and Everett. Drew was one of the first Sims. And Everett was also one of the not so random townies. I guess I'm having a lot of them here. So, they were just friends at first and they hung out and stuff. Moving on to one of the other camps, we have Ami and Zion. Ami was also one of the first Sims. It didn't take long for her to meet Zion, and I don't know, I guess they hit it off as well. Another of our first Sims was Naomi. She didn't get matched with her match until after the summer rotation. Next, moving on, we've got Judy, another one of the founders from the girls' camp. And then she met Dean Mesner. And Dean moved to Ashore with his brother and sister. This is his brother Isaac. Okay, moving on to another camp. We've got first the Burtons. So the Burtons was, why do I always, Taylor and Lucia. And they had 3 kids. This here is Scarlett. And there she is up close. And this is Skylar. Yes, Skylar. And there she is up close. And then we have little Darren. And there he is up close. He's the one cussing. Sophia on the left with the green shirt. And then on the right, all the way, in the green dog dress is Kyra. Kyra. And which is not the Burtons, Larson. These are the Larsons. Okay, so we've got Kyra, Brock, and Kenneth. We've got Enzo and Tobias, which are not founders, but they were so involved as secondary characters that they are actually in this video not because they got together during that summer, but because I have so many screenshots of them during that summer. So I was kind of obsessed with Enzo and Tobias, and I'm sure you'll see that as we go on. So that's it. That is at least some of the Sims. I started out the regular Ashore with 20 Sims in a camping lot, and then made some not so random townies, and the townies ended up getting in relationships with a lot of those first Sims, and then I started getting very attached to the not so random townies like Enzo and Tobias, and it just snowballed from there. And now we're in 5 camps of around 18 Sims each in the new Ashore. So look forward to more, seeing how these Sims do in a completely different environment where they do not have the basics sent to them from the city like they were in the regular Ashore, or the first Ashore, or the history of Ashore, however you want to look at it. I do not know what I want to call it. So there you go. That is what we've got, and I hope you enjoyed it. Thanks for watching.